nobody can be brought in without the permission of Helen. So I said, if that's the case, the ANC must be the most dumbest liberation organization in the history of the world. Well, for a start, the head of my office was killed, and my staff have lost 210 family members. One of my staff has lost 105 of a family, one staff alone. Mother killed her 3 children, and she hung herself. If you investigate the cause of the death, it was because of hunger. They call me a terrorist? Yes, I am. Because I terrorize people who support genocide.
Fam, I just want to give a shout out to the sponsor of today's episode, Pace Car Rental. Use promo code SMWX for 10% off your next car rental, and make sure you show Pace some love as they're showing this channel some love. Now, let's get into the episode. Spread the fire. Welcome back to SMWX, and today I'm extremely excited and honored to be joined by a South African legend, a doctor turned into a philanthropist, and someone who has built Gift of the Givers into a national treasure, working on everything from disaster relief to service delivery to providing aid to those in need in war zones. None other than Dr. Imtiaz Sooliman. What a pleasure to have you, sir, and welcome.
Thank you very much for having me on your program.
It's a great honor to have you on our program. And I wonder if we could begin with an interesting comment you made just at the inauguration of this government, where you said you thought this was a government of selective unity rather than a government of national unity. Do you still hold that belief, and what led you to say that?
Well, it was obvious. It seemed like it was workshop before the actually inauguration, that, you know, the protocol or the blueprint was too obvious. They could have prepared that so quickly after the inauguration. And of course, the minor parties and some of the bigger parties were left out. And to me, to be more specific, it looked like a DA-ANC coalition, to be more specific. And immediately after that, you know, the next morning on one of the TV channels, I was told that nobody can be brought in without the permission of Helen. So I said, if that's the case, the ANC must be the most dumbest liberation organization in the history of the world to allow something like that. They should have an exit strategy. The same afternoon, I think the Speaker in the Parliament was annoyed that a statement like that was made, not by me, but by Helen, according to what the media guy said, and they started inviting the smaller parties. Of course, they left out the MK and the EFF, and I had a problem with that. I said, a government of national unity, like how Mandela did it, you invite everybody, even if you don't agree with their point of view. That's what a government of national unity is. You try to find common ground in spite of your differences, and you build the country like that. Of course, they said the EFF and MK didn't want to come. That's fine, but did you invite them? If you invited them and they said no, that's fair. They don't want to be in. Sure. But if you excluded them, then I have a problem. Because if you can invite people who are part of the apartheid type of government, and, you know, they were your enemy, but these guys were your brothers in the trench, how can you leave them out? There's something very seriously wrong with your ethics and the way you work. And of course, afterwards, the other groups came and almost everybody got included. I'm fine with that, you know. Sure. And that if the EFF and MK, they had the reasons why they want to come in, that's not an issue. As long as they were invited, it's fine.
It was an interesting statement, because I've often wondered and hoped if we could have a true government of national unity, as you say, where we suspend these petty political squabbles for 5 years, and everyone says that these are the 3 key developmental goals that we're all working towards. We'll get back to the politics in 5 years, but now we're coming together as a nation to truly forward a national agenda. It might be naive, but it would be wonderful if we could reach that level one day.
We need that right now.
Absolutely.
We need the egos to be put aside, because people need to understand, why do you get into government? Is it there to serve your country, or are you there to serve yourself and your own agendas? When you get in government, your process must not be there to fight other people in the government. Your process must be there to see what can you do to uplift the country. And that should be thinking permanently for life. Because at the end of the day, the electorate, or rather the masses, are dependent on service delivery, on improving the quality of their lives. They've been through hardship pre-94, and they're still in hardship post-94. And we need to have a plan that instead of fighting each other in government, what can we do together as political parties to improve the life of our people? Because you could have been that people. It's just that you're fortunate that you got a good position, you're higher up, and you're not seeing what's going on in the heart, in the lives of people, and there's a lot going on.
You certainly know how much is going on with your work at Gift of the Givers. Take us into the origins of Gift of the Givers and the message you got, which shaped your path down a very different direction to the medical one you were on.
Well, first of all, Gift of the Givers is not my organization. I didn't get up one morning and say to myself, okay, I think today I'll form an organization. I'm really bored. I don't know what to do. I had 3 practices. I was very busy as a doctor, Monday to Sunday, after hours, public holidays, long weekends. I worked really hard. So I had no intention of forming any organization. It's totally spiritual. It's a long story, but I went to Turkey on the advice of an Afrikaner person. I moved to Maritzburg in let's go a little back. I did.
And we've got time.
Yeah, I was doing internship in 1985 at King Edward Hospital in Durban. I was hoping to study internal medicine the year after that, but there were no posts. So no, I couldn't study further. So my father-in-law said, why don't you come to Pietermaritzburg, open a practice, and maybe after a few years you go back and study when the opportunity arises. I said, very good idea. I moved to Maritzburg. The same week I moved to Maritzburg, a butcher was my neighbor, my new neighbor, now I'm in a new building. He comes to me and said, look, I got a patient, a customer who came to my shop. He needs a butcher and a doctor. So I told him, I'm the butcher, and a new doctor just moved next to me. Now, in that itself is spiritual.
Wow.
You see, there are doctors in Maritzburg, and there are butchers in Maritzburg too.
Sure.
But very few butchers and doctors are neighbors, right?
Yeah.
So that itself was a message. And he came, and I treated him, and we spoke. And one day spoke about his experience in America, how he met a great spiritual teacher. This Afrikaner guy. How he met a great spiritual teacher from Turkey who had come to St. John the Divine, a church in New York, and how he was embraced by the church. And he performed a zikr. A zikr is an Islamic practice where you recite God's names in Arabic. So in other scriptures, you would say God, the one and only, kind, compassionate, merciful, eternal, loving, absolute, cherisher, nourisher, sustainer, creator, and so it goes. And he said in that practice, in the church, Christians of different denominations, Jews, Muslims, and people who said we really don't belong to any religion, participated in the zikr. So it means the Christian elders of the church understood real religion. That real religion brings people together, not take them apart. I was amazed by what he said. And then he told me, you need to go to Turkey. So I laughed. I said, Mullah, it's 86. I still haven't seen Cape Town. When am I going to get to Turkey? And he said something very profound. He said what God wills happens. There's a time and a place. It happened in August 91. Post-Gulf War, my wife and I landed in Turkey. It's a very long story. And we landed in Turkey, in Istanbul. What Mullah saw in New York, my wife and I saw in Istanbul. He saw what he saw in a church, I saw in a Sufi place. The Halveti Jerahi Order of Istanbul. He saw Christians, Jews, and Muslims in the church. I saw Christians, Jews, Muslims, people who say they don't believe in any book. But I saw something different. I saw people of different nationalities. Germany, France, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, parts of Southeast Asia and Africa. What was amazing, that this was a few months post-war, Gulf War. There was absolutely no friction. People respected each other, understood each other, loved each other. I couldn't understand this concept coming from an apartheid South Africa. My wife and I came back home. My heart yearned for that place. I met the spiritual teacher. I really don't know who the man is. I don't know him, and I don't know this tradition, but my heart called me back. So 6 August 92, I landed up back there. That same day, Thursday night, 10 p.m., after zikr. A zikr is a very important practice in Sufism. And Thursday night, as everybody knows, it's the beginning of Friday for Muslims. We follow the lunar calendar, so our day starts at sunset the day before. So Friday actually is Thursday night after sunset. At 10 p.m., the zikr took place. It stopped. Immediately it stopped. The teacher picked up his head, made eye contact with me. I was in the other part of the room. I saw him looking at me, and then he looked heavenwards at the same time. In fluent Turkish, and I don't speak a word of Turkish. But I understood every word that he said in Turkish that night. He said, my son, I'm not asking you. I'm instructing you to form an organization. I told you it's not mine. I got an instruction now to form an organization. He gave the name. When a spiritual teacher gives a name, there's power in that name. In Arabic, it will be called Waqful Waqifin. Translated, gift of the givers. You will serve all people of all races, all religions, all colors, all classes, all cultures, of any geographical location and of any political affiliation. But you will serve them unconditionally. You will expect nothing in return, not even a thank you. This is an instruction for you for the rest of your life. I was 30 years old. Serve people with love, kindness, compassion, and mercy. And remember, the dignity of man is foremost. So if someone is down in the ground, don't push them down further. Hold them, elevate them, wipe the tear of a grieving child, caress the head of an orphan, say words of good counsel to a widow. These things are free. They don't cost anything. Clothe the naked, feed the hungry, provide water to the thirsty, and in everything you do, be the best at what you do. Not because of ego, but because you're dealing with human life, human emotion, human suffering, and human dignity. My son, don't ever forget that whatever you do is done through you and not by you. There is no place for ego. Wow. I asked him at some point, how come when you speak Turkish I understand? And everybody else just speak Turkish, I don't understand a word they're saying. He said, my son, when the hearts connect and the souls connect, the words become understandable. I said, I'm a doctor in private practice. I have 3 surgeries in a place called Pietermaritzburg in South Africa. What exactly are you asking of me? He told me one line. You will know. For 32 years, I know exactly what to do, how to do, what to touch, what not to touch, what not to do. Things fall into place for me, and I know exactly how to intervene.
It's a wonderful story because it's born of people in a context in which there was unity, there was an ability to look beyond religious divisions, cultural divisions. And even though it was in a different country, that speaks to the country you would go into to serve. You serve around the world, and you started in Bosnia, which I want to get to. But the message seems to be one of unity as well as impact.
He taught a lot of things. I've been to Turkey 28 times. And he said the essence of religion is love. We don't judge people. That's God's job. When we see people, we try to see the good in them. We don't try to enhance and emphasize the bad. And he said if you do that, if you keep telling a person who's done some wrong, but you tell them, look, you did this well, you did this well, you did this well, you encourage that person to do more good. And you start saying good messages into the universe. And the universe responds likewise. Goodness gets goodness. And he said, people may have bad habits. There's no perfect person on earth. But it doesn't make them bad people. So you need to understand that the habit and the person are 2 different things. And so when you deal with people, you deal with the premise that all people are good, that like them, you got faults too. And that the real person who wants to make progress in life spends more time in the mirror looking at his own faults than rather trying to fix somebody else's faults. And collectively, universally, if everybody starts doing that, we'll be so much better as a human race that we spend more time fixing ourselves and encouraging and commenting the good in the other people.
It would be wonderful. Tell me about the first mission and how that shaped the trajectory of Gift of the Givers, because you received an inspired idea to go to the Bosnian war zone, which at that time in the mid-90s was really the central conflict going on in the world at the time.
Well, when he said, you will know what to do, the moment I walked out of that place on 6th August 92, it came to me. Respond to the civil war in Bosnia. The same month of August, I took in 32 containers of aid into Bosnia, into a war zone all alone. And thereafter, in November, I took in 8 containers of winter items. The year later, I had heard of Arms Corps having done some medical units, in Angola. Theater, sterilization, and X-ray. We saw it at the exhibition. And a thought came to me, why don't we build an entire hospital in containers? I sat with the company, and we designed it. It was a world first. No government, no agency, nobody in the world had designed a hospital in containers. 28 state-of-the-art theater, X-ray, ICU, sterilization, dental unit, burns unit, physiotherapy, casualty, outpatient, obstetrics and gynecology, pediatrics, orthopedics, general surgery, plus an ambulance, a bus, and a generator, with enough fuel to run the entire operation for one whole year underground. Plus 10 containers of backup supplies, sutures, antibiotics, anesthetics, everything required, IV lines, IV vacuolators, everything required in a hospital. It was put in an underground warehouse in a place called Mosta. CNN filmed the hospital on 1st February 94. And they said the South African containerized mobile hospital is equal to any of the best hospitals in Europe.
Wow.
It was a product of South African engineering and South African technology built in Africa and taken into Europe, a world first. It shows the capability of our country, our people, and what skills we have.
I heard you say that 90% of what you learned in that first mission. Talk us through the kinds of things you saw as you were making this massive life transition that have stayed with you all the way through to building Gift of the Givers, not just into a South African institution of repute, but a global institution of widespread praise.
I mean, the first mission we got involved in is a war zone. Who does that? You start over a feeding center or providing some water.
Yeah, you started.
Or a blankets, something. But I got thrown into it. It required dealing with warring factions, governments, diplomacy, currency exchange, foreign relations, logistics, flights, security, threats, speaking to the people, psychological effects, needs of people, assessments, almost everything that you would do, in disasters over the years. Most of that I got faced at the first time. Obstruction. I mean, it took me 20 weeks to put the hospital in. We were obstructed every way, every stop. We were prevented from taking it in. Persistence, perseverance, patience, advice, getting legal teams involved. Everything we had to do. Almost 90% of what I learned today was that first mission.
Do you remember any stories in particular of that first mission that stand out to you as being particularly impactful?
Well, people broke into our containers and stole some stuff, but it wasn't much because opposition factions was lying in the port. And a Christian organization came to us and gave us $6,000, which was probably 10 times more than what we lost from the container.
Wow.
When I was in Croatia, the Croats didn't like me because they said, you're supporting the Bosnians, but I was supporting, it was Humanitarian. And I had to start speaking to South Africa and Afrikaans. So when I was on the call, so they couldn't listen, and I started speaking Afrikaans, quite often coming home.
Yeah.
And of course, the type of people I met and the support I got. I met the president, the prime minister, the health minister, and of course, the then foreign minister, a guy called Irfan Lubiankic, came to Manila's inauguration, and he asked the government if he wants to meet me. I met him personally, and soon after he went back, his helicopter was shot down, he was killed. So I never saw him again. And we had sent gifts for his kids. So that was very, very, important, sort of touching for us. The hospital itself was great. When I went back in 2005 with my family, we were invited by the new president, as the guest of the government, and we were taken to various cities throughout Bosnia. There was some degree of reconciliation and people working together and trying to fix the country, and some areas were very tense. The hospitals I told them that time, when the war is over, you don't have to keep the hospital in containers. It's built in such a way that you can remove the equipment and put it in a fixed structure. And that's exactly what they did. The military barracks became the main hospital of the city. And all the equipment was removed and put inside there. The doctor I put in charge in 93 was the same doctor in charge in 2005. When I met him, he said, you told us that with the hospital, we can do everything besides heart surgery. I said, that's what I told you. Yes.
Yeah.
He brings the lady to me, said, meet the lady. He said, this lady had shrapnel in her heart. We removed the shrapnel from her heart in this theater that you South Africans provided. And you see these 4 children? They were born to this lady in this very hospital that you guys provided after the shrapnel was removed from her heart.
Amazing.
We identify and recognize South Africans as people who heal, who give love, and who give life.
It's incredible. And, for more than 3 decades now, you have been at the center of some of our country's most tense and trying and disastrous moments, but also the world's most disastrous moments. And I wanna come right to the present, because no one can deny that the situation in Gaza, not just now, but over the last 2 years at least, but of course long before that, has been desperate, has been terrifying. And you have unique insight into the suffering of the people of Gaza, having worked there. Take us into the situation there, and why it's one that you've spoken about as one of the worst situations in the world. And this comes from someone who has seen the world's worst situations.
Well, for a start, the head of my office was killed, and my staff have lost 210 family members. One of my staff has lost 105 of a family, one staff alone.
105.
And these are women and children and old people, non-combatants. And all my staff's family are non-combatants. When the war started, after October 7th, I told my teams, I got officers in Gaza. I told my teams, Netanyahu is going to go crazy. You guys, his ego has been broken. He's going to go totally insane. Buy stuff, stockpile. You're going to need to distribute to hospitals, to people, to schools. It's going to happen. It didn't even take long for my words to settle, and it happened. On day 10, not like 6 months later, on day 10, my team stormed on the ground. This is the beginning of a genocide. He said he's bombing everything. Hospitals, clinics, schools, water plants, ambulances, paramedics, roads, bakeries, mosques, churches, the electrical infrastructure, everything, buildings, houses, shops. He's going crazy. That's what he said. And of course, my teams bought stuff inside. And when we managed to send stuff, we sent stuff from outside. And then we had to push teams in the north, in the center, in the south, because you couldn't move around. It was impossible. They bombed our 6-story building, Women and Child Care Center, gone. Our health center in Khuza, gone. Our desalination plants, gone. Our trucks, gone. So whilst they were still working, the desalination plants, then of course the electricity got cut off. So they needed fuel, and they needed a generator. The people of Gaza brought the generator. And then we said, what about fuel? You guys need your cars to drive around to different parts. They said, we'll make the sacrifice. We'll take the fuel out of our cars and give it to you. Because of the generosity of the people of Gaza, we could run the desalination plants for much longer and provide water to different areas. Then instead of using trucks, we started using donkey carts. You don't need fuel. And the donkey carts started distributing water everywhere. We provided wheelchairs, crutches, walking aids, medical supplies, equipment, hygiene packs, food parcels, hot meals, water, either to hospitals or schools or camps. And over a period of time, we sent in many other supplies. When the ceasefire, broke, was disturbed.
Yes.
We managed to put in 10 cities from material we could get inside. We renovated an entire wing in Al-Shifa Hospital. We put in medical teams in 3 different hospitals, but outside in tents, seeing 200 patients a day, paying 2 doctors, 2 nurses, and admin staff, and providing medical supplies. A special thank you to Espen, Stavros, who gave us $250,000 worth of medicine.
Wow.
Especially anesthetics and painkillers when there was no medication to do anesthetics and analgesia. So, and he called me again last week and said, what else do you need?
Wow.
He was very generous. And he said, I'll do more for you. Completely unsolicited. And of course, we fixed some desalination plants, hospital, we had teams. We started distributing ovens for people to bake bread. We brought in a lot of flour. You couldn't bring medical supplies. You couldn't bring in tents. We bought material that we could find and converted that into tent villages. We keep the children happy. It's not psychological programs, but entertain them with a clown or buy some drawing books to color something in, anything to keep their mind occupied. A lot of kids can't speak. They've lost their speech because of the bombing and the fear and the anxiety and the torment they've been going through. We've supported medical and allied health science, not medical students, allied health sciences students, occupational health, physiotherapy. We funded them to finish their courses, and they're still studying there in Gaza, and to support the hospitals, to be there. We pay everybody we bring into the system. We've expanded our team, 6-7-fold. And we've got teams all over the country. They're not permanently part of us, but during the war, we're paying them. And, of course, our teams have lost 210 family members. We just lost 5 last week. And then on the outside, we're looking after them on the outside. In the Sinai, we got permission to look after Palestinian families in 3 buildings the Egyptian government had put them in. Then we paid Palestinian teachers and put up ECDs in the Sinai. And the Egyptians who are in the desert bring their children to the ECD also. We're looking after families inside Egypt in other parts, supporting students, medical and non-medical. We supported patients in the hospitals. And then we funded, and are still funding right now, 4,000 Palestinian children who are studying in 6 private schools in the afternoon, and 500 teachers teaching them, all Palestinian, that we are funding. And then, of course, there's 180 psychologists. We're not the only people, but the other groups funding them, and they're carrying out psychological assessment and evaluation and management of patients who have come in from Gaza. Once the border opens up, we can take this as a primary group to go inside Gaza. Then, of course, we brought 27 students to UCT, and they just qualified 2 weeks ago. We brought 22 to WITS, and we brought 10 to Pretoria. 59 students. We're very, very thankful to our government, our universities, the academics, who resisted all types of pressure to bring the students into South Africa and into our universities. So it has been a very collaborative effort. It has been great. The sad part is we've lost so many of our family members, our team's family members, but we're still distributing food parcels. We're still giving out water. We're still giving out ovens. And then last week, of course, it came to a total dead still. We had nothing to offer. We didn't have stuff inside. We couldn't buy. We couldn't get things in. We didn't have any warehouse stock. It just came to a dead standstill. I'm meeting my teams actually today from Palestine, from Egypt. We're having a meeting today to see the way forward.
I mean, where does this rank in terms of, the kind of things you've seen and the disasters you've been in terms of just human tragedy?
This is the worst, because this is not a war between 2 armies. In other areas, there was a war between 2 armies. There's no tanks, helicopters, naval ships, heavy artillery, heavy guns, 2,000-pound bombs, drones. This is an innocent nation, mostly women and children. You're fighting an unarmed nation with the most destructive weapons in the world. You're the 4th largest army on earth. You got support from America, Germany, France, and the UK, plus all your Zionist money that comes from all over supporting you. And yet, you couldn't destroy an unarmed nation. In 1967, around that time, in 7 days, you took 3 countries. Syria, it was a proper war. Syria, Egypt, and Jordan. This is not a war. And after 20 months, they're still standing. You've lost. You've lost your moral high ground. You've lost your ethics. You've lost your humanity. And the world is going to turn against you. And I've got a message for you, Israel. This is your end, not the end of Gaza. This is going to be the rebirth of Gaza and a strong nation of faith. And this is the end of Israel.
I mean, it seems as if, we've seen European leaders now speaking out, very belatedly, but speaking out quite strongly. France, UK, Spain.
Spain was good from the beginning.
Sure.
Spain and Portugal always spoke out from the beginning, as did Ireland, as did Norway. And other countries are coming now. Yeah. Nobody wants to be on the wrong side of history. They're already on the wrong side of history.
And we've seen quite a move in Western media as well, with the Financial Times, The Economist coming out with editorials just saying that this is now unconscionable. So, I mean, South Africa in many ways, the gift of the givers for sure, but South Africa led the way for all of our problems.
We led the charge.
This issue,
we led the charge. No way, 2 ways about that. And people said it's an election ploy, which is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because you tell me, it's not a religious war, but obviously it's more close to Muslims than to anybody else, right? Because majority of the people are Muslims and a small amount are Christians. And of course, whilst we talk about Christians, hats off to Reverend Mount Isaacs from Bethlehem, that priest. Actually, it's his birthday today. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's been a phenomenal guy, and I've spoken to him. And of course, I've hosted him in South Africa with the churches that brought him here. and we need communication. So yes, if you tell me it's an election gig, like are there 15 or 20 million Muslims in South Africa that would give the government overwhelming victory because we went to Palestine? I mean, it's a dumb statement, right? They did it purely because on principle. They understand what apartheid is. We understand what apartheid is. Israel and South Africa were both born in 1948. Both practice apartheid. This side we destroyed it. That side it's still standing. Mandela said our freedom is not complete. What are the freedom of the Palestinian people? We will see that freedom. It's going to happen soon. And the fact that South Africa went to the ICJ, all credit goes to them. And you're right, we couldn't keep the lights on. We couldn't do service delivery. But when it came to principle, nobody in the world could touch us. And in fact, I was with the members of the ICJ people right now.
Right.
Okay. And when some of them asked me, they said, did we achieve anything? I said, it's not the achievement that counts, the outcome that counts. It's the effort that counts. We actually told Israel that Africa is regarded as a swear word. We stupid people from Africa. We're taking you on. We're not afraid of you. You don't make us scared. You act with impunity. You think you're God. God doesn't behave like that. Sorry, it's a bad comparison. It's you guys are the hubris, the narcissistic behavior, the ego, the arrogance. You behave like this and you think you can get away with it because America and Europe is supporting you. Well, certain countries in Europe are supporting you. We Africans, we can't put our lights on, but on principle, we're coming for you. And when South Africa did that, 60 other countries then joined us, and the protest started all over the world. It was the small things, the consistency. Now you see what has happened. You just said it. The journalists have changed, government has changed, parliamentarians have changed. The consistency. There's a simple teaching we have. Truth has arrived and falsehood perished. For falsehood by its nature is bound to perish. 76 years of lies have been exposed. You can't hide it anymore. It's not going to take another 76 years to liberate Gaza. It's going to happen in the next year or two.
I mean, one of the things that in this process really shook me was when you spoke up as someone who had personal, direct experience of what has been happening in Gaza. This campaign of misinformation was launched against you.
Yes.
I mean, of all the people to try and accuse of doing wrong things in South Africa, some people decided they were going to go for the person who's actually been giving water to people. And I think the musician, the Kifness, accused you of being an Islamist, masquerading as a humanitarian. How did that make you feel?
Great. I felt fantastic. I said they were 1 year late in attacking me. I wanted them to attack me. I was disappointed it took them so long. And what does it mean by Islamists? Yeah. Islamists, yes, you got it all wrong, my friend. Islam is a religion of peace. So if he calls me somebody who's practicing peace, yes, truly, I'm that. They call me a terrorist, yes, I am. Because I terrorize people who support genocide. If they call me anti-Semitic, if anti-Semitic means revealing the lies of Israel, then I'm 500% anti-Semitic. Because you use anti-Semitic as a cover, as an excuse to cover the lies, the innuendo, the disinformation, the misinformation, the killing, the mayhem, the genocide, the occupation, the punishment, the torture, the disappearance. If you do that and use anti-Semitic to protect you, sorry, you are affecting the good Jews, the people who are not, because this is not a war between Jews and between the world and Jews. The Jews, we have a good relationship with them. The Zionists are the problem, who have turned against their own people. So yes, I am that. I'm a terrorist. I'm anti-Semitic. I'm Islamist. Call me whatever you want. The public answered him. And because I didn't have to say a word. I didn't have to respond. Because if I really did things the right way for 32 years, the public will know who I am. And that's the biggest mistake they made in this country.
Indeed, there was an attempt to get you to stop giving a Helen Suzman memorial lecture, and that failed very spectacularly, and you gave that lecture.
And at Coffee Berry in Pietermaritzburg, they tried again, and that failed spectacularly also. And afterwards, 90% of those people who were there were not Muslim, and they all wanted to take a picture and a photograph and be associated with us.
Well, I mean, solidarity, and for what it's worth, many of us were watching on in horror as people were trying to tarnish your reputation. But I'm interested in some of your experiences in South Africa. I've spoken about how you've stepped in moments of disaster in the country. I mean, the July unrest, July 2021 unrest plus floods, that must have been quite the year, even in your experience.
Well, the floods were in 22. The flood, the July unrest was in 21.
It was all a blur. And COVID,
Yes. COVID came first. We stepped in with that, we intervened in 210 hospitals nationwide. We put in 5,000 oxygen machines. We upgraded infrastructure. We put in bowls. We provided scrubs, pulse oximeters, thermometers, all sanitizers, the works. And we worked very, very well with government departments, NCOs, and the hospital staff. It was the beginning of a great relationship with government, which has always been there, right? But a great relationship. Civil unrest came. We called it out. Within 48 hours, we told them, this is insane, it's lunatic, and it's lunacy, you guys can't behave like this. And we started getting into the areas. There was a great remorse from the people who did what they did. And they said they were used. A lot of guys returned the stuff that they took, But the best part of South Africans was, within 3 to 4 days, everybody was standing in the queue. Those who were robbed and those who robbed. And they were standing in the queue like brothers, sharing food and water and doing things together. The anger settled down very quickly. God got strange ways. On the following year, the floods had hit April 22. Hit the same areas where the looting took place, by far and large. And the people who looted came to help the people who looted them in the floods itself. And actually, it was a complete turnaround. The relations in KZN is far better now than it ever was. People respect each other. There's understanding, And as I said, there was lots of remorse from the people. This wasn't a political issue. The biggest theft didn't take place in a day. It took place at night. Specific warehouses were targeted, where goods were palletized, and trucks came in, and goods were lifted and put into those trucks. People knew exactly what was where. It was more an economic theft rather than a political issue. And of course, after the floods came in 2022, there's been such a realignment of people working so closely together. So yes, we've got a great relationship with government, disaster management. Any disaster in South Africa, we get called by disaster management. We get called by ministers. We get called by municipality, by mayors, by councillors, by the public, by the media, everyone. And, so disasters is our specialty. But at the same time, post-COVID, one of the biggest challenges was the catch-up surgery. We fell behind in elective surgery like 5, 6, 7 years. And we started getting involved in doing catch-up surgery. Yesterday Hospital, we supported them. And of course, the healthcare workers did their job, but we funded it. And we wiped out the entire backlog. The entire backlog in Victoria Hospital. The entire backlog in Grabo. The entire backlog in Toosrivier. The entire backlog in McCord. It's not only us, it's the normal government, but the support they got in addition to us. It's great. And then now we're busy trying to wipe out the backlog at Prince Mashiane. That's next. And we got funding to wipe out an entire backlog of 2,600. We upgraded hospitals, the liver unit at Grooteskier, so many other hospitals. We repaired 42 schools in post-floods of April 22. Right?
Wow, 42 schools.
Yes, and then and thanks to the corporates, they've been great. That's the other element. The corporates have been great in helping fix the country. And,
absolutely.
And the challenge to me came when I took Israel on. People say you're going to lose your support. I said I really don't care. If people know who I am, the support will increase. And exactly that happened. More support came. The same companies gave us more. More companies came. And I get invited to do lectures. I said, if they don't like me, they're not going to invite me. I did 205 lectures last year. The biggest ever in my history.
Brilliant.
Yes. And now American companies are joining the queue to work with us. Yes. They're joining the queue to work with us. So, and we've told them health is number one. Because COVID proved that if you have all the money in the world, but no health, you are gone. You can't do anything. So, we're promoting the idea. And the other big challenge, of course, there's huge hunger in this country. We need to put food in every part of this country. It's not only poor people, it's even middle-class people battling now. So food is a huge crisis in South Africa. We had 233 feeding centers. It disasters when you go. In the old days, like 3 years ago, they would tell you, where's the building kit? Don't worry about anything else. Give us the building kit. We need to rebuild the house. Now they ask you, where's the food? The moment you go in, and when you see the kids eat, you see, this is not like a 2-hour hunger. This is there for days. So we've changed the system. No more 3 days feeding. We go to 7 days, 10 days, sometimes 30 days of feeding. It's unfortunate what it costs. But we do something else. We set the fire and the storm is on the left. Check the right. But if it's the same community, these people, we know their problem because we've seen the fire or the storm. But on the other side, there's no fire, no storm, so we don't know what's going on. Go and check. And you see the child on the area where there's no storm eats exactly with the same hunger at the child in the fire or the storm. Now we've got to feed both sides. And we've done that.
Sure.
And we continue doing that.
In some ways, it's just so sad that a country with such wealth is still dealing with such a basic problem as just putting food in people's mouths.
So on August 6, 2023, our 31st anniversary was a very sad day. In a place called Tobello Village in Butterworth, Eastern Cape, mother killed her 3 children and she hung herself. If you investigate the cause of the death, it was because of hunger. There was no food in the house, no breadwinner. They borrowed some money from some neighbor in the area. They bought the food. The neighbor came after a couple of days and needed the money back. They couldn't pay it back. The mother had rat eggs. She put it in the food. She fed 2 children, the smaller ones. She couldn't feed the 3rd child because there was rat eggs but no food.
Sure.
So a child won't eat rat eggs on its own. So the 2 children died instantly with the rat eggs. The 3rd child, because she didn't have food, she took a knife and put it into the throat of the child. And then she hung herself. And when we investigated that village, there was hunger throughout. We went to homes, there were children sitting alone, no parents, sitting in the center of the room with nothing to eat. An old lady cooked the last cabbage. We intervened to provide food everywhere there. That's only one story of several similar stories throughout South Africa. We ask South Africans, please don't waste food. Please find those that are hungry. If you find them yourself, or your domestic or somebody knows there's hunger, let's do whatever we can in our own way. It's the most horrible way to die. What Gaza is doing to the Palestinians, slow death, starvation, is the worst form of death because you're helpless. It's demoralizing. It's dehumanizing. It takes your dignity away, and it's intense suffering for the parents to watch how their children wither away, and there's nothing they can do about it.
On the other side of the spectrum, in some ways, during that moment of COVID and the July unrest and floods, we also saw some of the best of collaboration in South Africa where, as you say, corporate South Africa came to the party, government did what it could, Gift of the Givers and organizations like you really helped to shield us from some of the worst outcomes. And when we look at how we dealt with COVID, I think we can be quite proud as a country that, although we lost many lives and we can never get them back, we also prevented many, many deaths in the way we came together.
It was phenomenal because nobody had a blueprint how to deal with this. We lost 750 doctors in 9 months in 2020. We lost 750 doctors in 9 weeks in 2021. But we salute the healthcare workers, which include the porter, the cleaner, and the nurse and the doctor and everybody else. We salute those who came and gave backup support. People started cooking for families. If you lost somebody was in hospital and sick, South Africans started cooking for each other and taking food to the house. They took risk, but they were there. They stood up, and they don't know the people. They just cooked. They don't know who the people were. They just did it out of the generosity of their hearts because we are an Ubuntu nation, And that spirit, that's what the world loves about us. Not because we've got mountains and Table Mountain and a nice sea and good weather. It's not that. They love our people because we got that spirit of hospitality and love and caring. So people did that kind of stuff. I remember in Livingston Hospital, the doctors were very down one day in Gqeberha. And we told Harley Davidson guys, do something. They came with the motorbikes and the hospital and started hooting and, saying hello, kind of stuff. And we gave hygiene packs to all the doctors. They could afford it. But coming from outside, saying, we acknowledge and we appreciate what you're doing.
Yeah.
And the healthcare workers, of course, not only the doctors, made a huge impact for moral boosting. And of course, government, corporates, all of the people, everybody got involved. Everybody could try to save lives. They did whatever they could. So it was a real spirit of cooperation. A German guy, last year, at the business chamber, told me, you South Africans are crazy people. So I said, what do you mean? He said, you guys fight about lots of issues. But when it comes to something important and common, all of you guys stand together. And he said, if this is one country in the world I would love to live in because of you South Africans, the way you guys are.
Wow.
It's a great, acknowledgement of our people. So yes, lots was done. Doctors are not good administrators. They're not good managers. But they had to stop elective surgery, close the theaters, take the equipment out, take it to ICU, put oxygen points, let's fix systems, to move things around in the ward. They did phenomenally well. The saddest thing was when a guard of honor was prepared for a doctor who died in a hospital or died somewhere, and you just see your friend for so many years go. They were broken. But I think the most outstanding story was for COVID was when Ibrahim Patel, ex-Minister of Trade and Industry, said to the SK8 telescope guys, look, friends, we don't have enough oxygen machines. China is consuming it itself, or it's going to Europe and America and Canada. They got more money than us. Africa is the bottom of the pot. So let's design something. The engineers got together and they designed the CPAP machine, which CSIR manufactured, Solidarity Fund paid for it, SAPRA approved it, and we put into the hospitals. For almost 5,000 CPAP machines, oxygen life-saving machines. The high-flow nasal oxygen machines that we're importing was eating 80 to 120 liters of oxygen per minute. That's why you had those big oxygen things in the hospital, but they were getting depleted very fast. But this machine did an equally successful job, but only using 10 to 30 liters per minute. Wow. And you could plug it on the head of the patient in the ward. The other one can only be used in the ICU. We gave it to the private hospitals. We said, open your wards. And the private hospitals started opening up many more wards because now they had oxygen machines. And they had the oxygen, but not the machine. And we saved many more lives because the machine the government designed and everybody worked together. In the first 48 hours, we put 900 machines in Eastern Cape. Even the Mauritius government asked us, and we made arrangements with South Africa, and we got the machines 500 for them. Wow. And the Mauritian government sent a plane to fetch those machines.
It's amazing. I mean, as we conclude, I guess you've seen so much of our country and the most desperate corners of our country at the most desperate times in the work that you do. What do you think in the next 5-10 years is the thing we need to prioritize most to stop this level of suffering and at least bring people below a certain or above a certain threshold of dignity?
Well, everything is dependent on money. That's the key principle. We have money. It's not used properly. So we have to make sure, number one, that more people start paying their taxes. The 900 billion rand informal economy, we need to get money from there. People must be responsible and start paying towards. There's only 7.4 million taxpayers now, which is peanuts to look after 65 million people. So citizens have to do their responsible behavior and pay their taxes. Government has to be responsible and not be corrupt. Government is not corrupt. There are corrupt people in government, which is very different. And the corporates have to be honest and in integrity because they inflate prices to government on equipment and supplies. For example, in Northwest, we were going to put astroturfs and we were given 10 million. And we told one of the MECs and they said, at least we'll get one. We asked, what do you mean we'll get one? She said, I was quoted 8 million for one. They cost 850,000. So we need corporates not to be dishonest, no collusion, work together with government. We need prudent use of the money. I told Praveen Gordon many years ago, we should have a centralized funding from a centralized source, not allow all different municipalities and different parts of government to fund everything. Because if you put in the computer and it says school, 30 square meters by 20 square meters, 400,000 rand, and somebody else says 4 million, something's wrong somewhere. So to have a centralized way on which to spend money. So the government has to come up with the systems. Of course, the Hawks and the SIU need to go for all the money that we lost. And there has to be people in orange overalls now. Once you fight corruption, be prudent with the use of money. Corporates don't exploit you, and government is too bloated, by the way. We can't have so many ministries. We need to cut this down to what, 15 or 16? We don't need so many, civil servants in terms of director, chief director, assistant director, PA. And, those are huge salaries. Just the salary bill, we can cut out a substantial amount of that. And once we start saving that and then put it into our debt, the interest saving will become available, easy to develop the country. We need that money of what we're losing all the time with interest payments. If our interest payments are substantially reduced and the capital cost comes down, what more tax and more money to generate to generate jobs in the economy, you have more tax-paying people. So let's take a simple example. Why do you cut doctors, nurses, paramedics to hospital? The health of the nation, if that collapses, everybody goes with it.
Yeah.
The more doctors you employ, the more nurses you employ, the more the people will be healthy, the more they will be productive, the more they'll be contributing towards tax.
Absolutely.
And all those doctors it's service-oriented jobs. We need service-oriented jobs. Teachers are service-oriented. Psychologists are service-oriented. Nurses are service-oriented. Doctors are service-oriented.
Police.
And police are service-oriented. So all these are paid by government, but the money is coming back. But they're spending in the different parts of the country. We're asking rich people, spend money, invest in the country. All of people's got means spent because the economy is turned around by people's money being spent. More jobs are created. For example, a rich man, if he eats only one burger, can only eat one burger.
Sure.
But if there's many more jobs, 1,000 people can eat 1,000 burgers. So there's a knock-on effect in whichever way we can do it. The other, along the same line, what was horrendous during COVID, where employees were suddenly cut off. They worked for you for 30 years and 35 years, and you just cut them off. Their family knew nobody else but your company. Your company was built because of your staff, and then they get cut off. That could be understandable because of the economic situation. But then you get a bonus, extra shares, fantastic payout. What kind of ethics is this? And yet there were other companies where the CEOs took a knock, middle management took a knock, seniors management took a knock, staff took a knock. They paid as much as they could, as long as they could, to save the jobs, and many of those companies came back. Farmers did the same thing. They kept the laborers as much as they could until the credit card got maxed, the overdraft got maxed, the corporates got maxed. They didn't have fuel to put into the bucket to fetch fodder. They didn't have food for their own families. They took their kids out of private schools and universities. They did what they could to the extent they could do. They summarized maximally to try to save the jobs of ordinary laborers.
And you've done some work with South African farmers themselves.
In August 2017, when the Knysna fire came in June 2017, and at that point, we started getting calls from then June, but more in around August 2017, to say farmers are in trouble. They didn't call me directly. An Afrikaner lady called me. And she said, look, farmers need help in Sutherland and the Northern Cape. The sheep count of the prize merino sheep, it is dropping from 442,000 and eventually landed to 32,000. Jobs are being lost, and all the things that I told you happened to farmers happened, and some of them even shot themselves. All right? It was tragic. So I said, what must I do? She said, send fodder. I said, you mean hay? She said, no, I don't mean hay. I mean fodder. I said, what's the difference? And then she said, you get different types, lucerne, maize, you get other kinds of fodder that's required. I said, okay, you know it, you tell me what to do and I'll pay for it. And then eventually she also got lots of free fodder. The generosity of farmers that were not cut up with the drought, because there was a drought there, started selling fodder. But what was killing us was the transport cost. And then eventually we needed to give food parcels to the farm workers monthly. Eventually the farmers themselves needed food for their families. And of course we started supporting them. And then in July of 2018, the farmer said, thank you very much, we finished. So we asked, what do you mean you finished? They said, there's no more water. All the boreholes have dried out. Sheep can't survive without water. So we said, no, we don't understand that language. So we sent in our drilling team and our geologist and hydrologist. We drilled 238 boreholes at a cost of 90 million to provide water to the sheep and to the area. Collectively, from August 2017 up till today, we've spent 400 million rand trying to save the farmers, the sheep, the jobs, and the laborers. And the turnaround is finally coming.
So far from the persecution of farmers, in fact, the stories we should be telling are how the country can often come together to protect them.
Yes. And they've been excellent. And let me tell you another story on the same thing. One of my main ladies that helped me is an Afrikaner farmer, a lady, Sybil Fisachi, and husband Jan, who's not too well now. Her son Kobus is now involved. They've taken all the non-white people, blacks and coloreds, and started giving them skills and said, let's sow something. We go put it at the waterfront and the foreigners will buy it. But in 2021, 2020, during the time of COVID, they did something remarkable. They got everybody to bake cookies in December. They sold 3 million rand worth of cookies in 3 weeks. Our trucks picked it up and took it to Pretoria.
Wow.
And it was there in Pretoria. All thanks to South Africans. Support local. Buy from your own people. The South Africans in Pretoria bought that whole amount of cookies, and money was put aside for fodder, for self-sufficiency or sustainability, and as a reserve. And it was an Afrikaner couple that took other people together, and they said, this drought has taught us unity. So there's great hope for this country.
Indeed. Well, Dr. Sooliman, we thank you for the work that you do. We thank you for the institutions that you have built, and we thank you for the hope that you continue to instill in many South Africans. And we thank you for your time today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
And thank you for watching. Like, share, subscribe, comment down below. Help us reach that next milestone of 250,000 subscribers. And make sure to keep it locked on SMWX. Aye.